80% of the plastic waste flowing into the world's oceans today actually comes from just 1,000 rivers. This massive volume of waste, carried by ocean currents, has accumulated in an area of 1.6 million square kilometers in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. 12 years ago, a project from the Netherlands aimed at cleaning this area was considered by experts to lack feasibility. And reality seemed to confirm that when the first test system encountered a technical failure at sea in 2018 and was called by the media a $1 million mistake. But instead of giving up, they returned with a system 2.2 kilometers long, supported by satellite AI. At present, they have achieved a record of collecting 11 tons of plastic in just one tow, with operating costs 90% lower than originally estimated. So how were they able to revive a project once considered a mistake to achieve the real results seen today? The latest oceanographic reports confirm that plastic here does not only float. Under the impact of UV rays and ocean waves, it gradually breaks down into extremely small microplastic particles, many as small as or smaller than a grain of rice. These particles can absorb pollutants in seawater. When plankton consume microplastics and fish eat the plankton, these substances can be transferred along the food chain and may eventually return to the human body. The latest data shows that plastic density in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is increasing more than 10 times faster than forecasts from the previous decade predicted. We are not only facing trash, but a global material transformation. Ocean currents, once the bloodstream that carried nutrients for the planet, have now been turned into a toxic transport system pumping back toward land. The natural balance has been completely broken, creating a biological dead zone that no organism can adapt to in time. The world has spent 50 years arguing over who should be held responsible for this mess. But while governments remain busy with endless meetings, a new intervention force has emerged from a direction no one expected. In 2012, Boyan Slat, an 18-year-old from the Netherlands, presented a new idea for cleaning the ocean at TEDx Delft. He set an ambitious goal to remove a large portion of the waste in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch within a few years. Instead of using trash collecting ships, a costly method that could take tens of thousands of years, Slat proposed using the movement of the ocean currents themselves to gather the trash passively. To prove that this was not just a bold idea, Slat and his team published a feasibility study more than 500 pages long, involving dozens of scientists and engineers. The report described a floating U-shaped barrier system capable of retaining plastic waste while still allowing marine life to move freely. However, not everyone believed in it. Many experts warned that the ocean is not an environment that can be controlled. Giant waves, constant drag forces, and extreme weather conditions in the Pacific could destroy any structure if the design was not durable enough. To them, this was not a solution, but an idea that was too ambitious, even unrealistic. Even so, Slat decided to continue. Starting with only a very small amount of personal savings, he launched a crowdfunding campaign and quickly received support from around the world. In a short time, the project raised $2.2 million United States dollars from more than 160 countries, a remarkable figure for a nonprofit environmental initiative at that time. Pause for a moment if you were standing in front of a disaster threatening the lives of billions of people and every expert had turned their back on you. Would you dare to give up everything and go all the way? Comment believe if you support minds bold enough to challenge the old path, or hard if you think the reality of the ocean is too brutal for one individual to change. Your opinion is one way the world can look back at these forgotten solutions. But Slat's optimism soon collided with brutal reality. When the system truly touched the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the disaster began to reveal itself in the most horrifying way. In September 2018, the entire world turned its attention towards San Francisco Bay as a gigantic floating structure, 600 meters long, codenamed Wilson, began heading out to sea. This was humanity's first weapon designed to confront the Great Pacific Garbage Patch directly. Wilson was equipped with the most advanced sensors, a satellite positioning system, and collision warning lights in the hope of proving that a passive barrier could collect trash without human labor. But the ocean soon delivered a brutal warning. After only a few months of operation, the project fell into an unprecedented crisis. When Wilson failed at its most basic mission, it could not hold on to the plastic. Ocean currents did not behave the way laboratory simulations had predicted. Because of the difference in speed, plastic that entered the arc of the barrier quietly drifted back out again. Wilson and the patches of trash moved at nearly the same speed, which meant there was no pressure force keeping the plastic trapped at the center of the system. This was a true shock to the engineering team, as years of calculations about fluid dynamics were completely overturned by reality. The nightmare did not stop there, because nature began attacking the weakest point of the structure. Under the continuous and violent pounding of the waves, material fatigue set in. A massive crack appeared, causing a section of the barrier as long as 18 meters to be torn apart and separated from the system. Wilson was shattered in the open ocean and had to be towed back to port in a state of severe damage. International media immediately exploded with harsh headlines, calling it a multi-million-dollar mistake. Experts who had doubted the project now declared that they had been right. Investors began pulling out, and public confidence dropped sharply. The entire project stood on the edge of being erased forever, because the Great Pacific Garbage Patch seemed to be a monster that could not be subdued. However, right in the wreckage of that failure, an important physical secret was discovered, one that no one had noticed before. Ocean plastic does not simply drift with the water, because part of every plastic fragment remains above the surface. It behaves like a tiny sail. Wind and surface wave pressure push the plastic faster than the ocean current moving below it. Meanwhile, Wilson's barrier system was being dragged more slowly by the water. The result was that the plastic always overtook the system and escaped. That discovery completely changed the strategy of the war. Instead of letting the system drift freely and surrendering to nature, a bold decision was made: humanity would actively control the speed of the barrier. Instead of giving up, the final remaining funds were poured into making one core change. They no longer allowed the system to drift freely, but used ships to tow it at an extremely slow yet stable speed. That single change gave birth to a true monster on a massive scale, and the power of its next version would leave the entire scientific world speechless. But to turn that theory into reality, they needed something bigger, tougher, and far more intelligent. That was the moment when a real giant revealed itself. Forget Wilson, because today's System 03 is an ecological intervention machine on a scale never seen before. At a length of 2.2 kilometers and with an underwater screen depth of 4 meters, it is the largest ocean cleaning structure in human history. The true breakthrough of System 03 lies in its artificial brain integrated with real-time satellite data. It is no longer a stationary trap left in one place to depend on luck. This system is connected directly to the global satellite network and operated by high-level analytical algorithms. The artificial intelligence continuously processes weather forecasts, wind strength, and current patterns to determine the locations of the densest clouds of trash. Instead of cleaning blindly, the ships guide the entire system to the exact coordinates where plastic is concentrated, based on highly accurate predictive data. The real numbers from operations in the year 2024 produced a level of astonishment never seen before. In a single towing operation, System 03 collected 11 tons of plastic, an unprecedented record in the history of ocean cleanup. Its current cleanup performance has reached the level of clearing an area equal to a soccer field in just a matter of seconds. The latest updated data confirms an economic turning point. The cost of removing each kilogram of plastic has dropped from thousands of dollars to less than $10. This is the first time ocean cleanup has become financially viable and capable of being sustained long-term without depending entirely on donations. But just when we begin to believe we are gaining the upper hand, another brutal truth emerges. Collecting trash in the middle of the Pacific is really only treating the symptom of a cancer that is already spreading in its final stage. The ocean vessel is still sinking because the massive holes have not yet been sealed. To truly win this ecological war, humanity must launch a direct assault on the deadly arteries. the places where poison is leaking straight from the land into the heart of the sea. Field research from the project exposed a brutal truth. 80% of the plastic flowing into the ocean comes from only 1,000 of the most polluted rivers on Earth. These rivers are no longer sources of life, but have turned into deadly arteries, continuously pumping poison into the heart of the sea 24 hours a day. If that flow cannot be stopped, every offshore effort becomes meaningless. To carry out this intervention, a new kind of weapon was created, the interceptor. This is not an ordinary boat, but an automated waste processing factory powered entirely by solar energy. It is designed to operate continuously, without noise and without emissions, silently swallowing tons of plastic right at the gateway before they can ever touch saltwater. The fiercest battlefield right now lies on the Rio Motagua in Guatemala, one of the largest sources of plastic waste flowing into the ocean. During the rainy season, rising water carries enormous volumes of trash, creating dense rivers of garbage that run straight into the sea. To confront this, humans deployed the Interceptor trash fence system, a massive steel barrier anchored firmly into the riverbed, strong enough to hold back huge volumes of waste without being broken by the force of the current. Real-world data shows that each interceptor is capable of collecting up to 100,000 kilograms of waste per day. Satellite images confirm that rivers once blackened by plastic in Malaysia and Indonesia are gradually recovering their blue and green color after this system began operating. This is a harsh but necessary intervention to stop the disaster at the source of pollution. But just as humans seemed ready to take control of the game, a new ecological paradox emerged, raising a moral question so unsettling that it left the scientific community stunned. In the latest scientific reports, a controversial truth has just been published. A completely new ecosystem called neopelagic has formed and developed inside the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Coastal species that once lived only near land have traveled thousands of miles and begun attaching themselves to pieces of plastic as if they were permanent homes in the vast open ocean. This places humanity in an unprecedented paradox. When we remove plastic from the ocean, we are not just cleaning up trash, but also unintentionally erasing a habitat that we ourselves created. On one side is the original ocean, where the natural ecosystem has existed for millions of years. On the other side is a new ecosystem, formed out of humanity's own mistake, yet now operating according to its own rules. This is a difficult question for science today. Should humanity save the original ocean, or protect the new life now multiplying across toxic floating waste? Despite these debates, ocean cleanup projects are still being expanded on a global scale. Systems such as the Ocean Cleanup are aiming to reduce floating plastic significantly over the coming decades, an effort meant to prevent the long-term damage plastic is causing to ecosystems and human health. This is no longer a choice, but a necessary step if we want to preserve the ocean's fragile balance. What is noteworthy is that the collected plastic is not discarded in the traditional way. Instead, it is sorted, processed, and recycled into high-value products. In recent shipments, the plastic has been carefully classified and recycled into premium products with lasting value, creating a major revenue source to reinvest in the production of new systems. The Netherlands took an idea once treated like a joke out to sea, and after being smashed into pieces by violent waves again and again, they forced the entire world to fall silent and look back in admiration. This is no longer the lonely dream of one individual, but has become the gold standard for global campaigns to save the ocean. Humanity started this war, and now, with artificial intelligence and steel barriers stretching for miles, humans are struggling to recover what has been taken from nature. Yet every advanced technology will become meaningless if consumer habits do not change immediately. Current medical warnings show that microplastics are silently becoming a permanent part of the human genetic code unless the source of pollution is stopped at its origin. Humanity's next interventions are moving steadily toward the deepest parts of the sea, where light cannot reach and the ecosystem remains an unknown. What we discover there may completely change the way we understand the ocean and our own impact on this planet. If you want to follow stories like this, press like and follow the channel so you do not miss the next analyses.